All right, so we're focusing on ganglands and the rise in crime and extortion in the Western Cape. It was a bloody weekend in Khayelitsha as mass killings left 13 people dead. The shooting broke out after members belonging to a suspected extortion gang circulated an image of a leader of a rival gang lying on the ground with a gunshot wound. The retaliation was after the alleged gang leader was killed whilst collecting a protection fee from a Somali-owned spaza shop. The police minister has hailed officers behind a breakthrough now that saw 11 suspects arrested at a hotel. 9 people were shot and killed over the weekend at different locations on Saturday. 4 others succumbed to their injuries later on, bringing that death toll to that incredible 13. To discuss now, we're joined by a senior policing and community conflict specialist from the Africa Centre for Security and Intelligence PRAXIS, Eldred de Klerk. We're also joined by an organisation for Somali spaza shop owners whose members have been extorted by gangs. Abdirizak Ali Osman is the national chairperson of the Somali Community Boards. Let me start with you, Mr. de Klerk. You say the brazenness of this attack is of concern.
Indeed it is, and thank you for the focus on this, because what we need to do is break the silence. This has been going on systematically for a while, and at the best of times, those who are seeking to do business or those who are vulnerable in some way because their status is unclear, pay what is most often or not a nominal fee, which they see as being fair. When that fee gets increased and they say no, that's when it often met with violence. So violence can be against the victim, and violence can also be between those who are seeking to extort those who are vulnerable.
So the gangs fighting over who will be extorted, basically?
Well, essentially, they have various niches. There are those who target people in the transport sector. There are those who target smaller businesses, and those who are target bigger business, and those who target development activities in the area. Each of those gives a slightly different configuration, and you need different muscles to be able to do that. When you're big enough as a gang, or the threat of violence from you is big enough, you can take on the so-called bigger players. You only need 2 or 3 people to go to a spaza shop, communicate to them and say, well, you won't be able to do business, or a backyard dweller for that matter, and say, you're not safe in your place unless you give us a small amount of money initially. Once they do that, they get away with it. It doesn't take a big gang to do it. So yes, what we see, this escalation means that it's lucrative and that people feel that they have something to lose, and therefore they have to start killing people.
Mr. Osman, is this true? Can you give us an experience of being a foreign business owner, a shop owner, say, on the Cape Flats?
Yes, thank you very much, and thanks for the viewers. Just for a small correction for the post that I am just the Deputy National Chairperson of Somali Community Board South Africa, not the National Chairman.
I apologize. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks. I think, yes, I agree with our brother there. In Cape Flats, actually, this not started the extortion. The problem that the foreign nationals or the business owners in the Cape Flats did not just wake up with the extortion gangs who were trying to demand some amount of money from the businesses. But remember, this started with the robbery and an ongoing fear that have been actually inflicted with the business people for very long time, robberies and killings. So when the problem actually expanded and it spread it all over, not only the Somali actually business owners, but every migrant in business within large parts of Western Cape are feeling the same thing. So it has been ongoing and experiencing for quite a number of different challenges, including fear, extortion, robbery, and even killings in them. So in order for them to actually ease some of these challenges, which you can see to some extent are much more fearful and dreadful than the other, they realized that the only way that they could feel safe in their environment was to accept these extortioners and the amount of money for blackmailing that people were requesting from the businesses, to accept it and feel in that way that they could be at least a bit safer than the way they were before.
Can you comment on the claims that the person killed, which sparked this violence over the weekend, was a gang leader collecting a protection fee from a Somali shop owner? Has that been confirmed?
No, we haven't confirmed yet. We understand that the incident happened actually in one of our members' business in Khayelitsha State B, but we haven't confirmed yet whether the leader was the person that has been killed was a gang leader or not. On our side, we haven't confirmed that.
Yeah. All right, I'd like to ask both of you, if this extortion is going on in daylight, this daylight robbery is rife, and that's the experience of basically every foreign shop owner, it sounds like, where are the police in all of this? Starting with you, Mr. de Klerk.
Well, it's actually, the difficult thing about extortion is that it's a common law crime, and what we have is we have case law, and we have pronouncements from judges and the like in relation to cases. The threat of violence in itself for benefit, because remember, this is not just about money, this is about deriving some sort of advantage or benefit, and it needs to be communicated, and the person who it needs to be communicated to feels a level of fear and recognizes the threat and therefore gives in. Unfortunately, it requires witness testimony. So it's very difficult often for the police to be present when that is communicated. However, we've seen examples out there where people make threats on social media. They put it out in pamphlets saying that if shop owners don't leave, if things don't close down, and they actually attach a name to it. That is an attempt to shut down business. It's an attempt to extort and gain an undue advantage. Then it's often more easier for the police to act. So police cannot, unfortunately, by themselves deal with this. It's going to take the likes of Mr. Osman and his community and all our communities to stand together and say, we will not tolerate this threat, because and we have to stand together on this and say, because what is that doing, not only to the perception of doing business in South Africa, but it's also South Africa is a safe haven for people from elsewhere in Africa.
Yeah.
Those perceptions are being impacted very negatively by this ongoing crime.
Sure, and it must be so hard if somebody comes and threatens you and your family. Mr. Osman, what is the relationship between Somali business people and the police in the Cape Flats?
Actually, there is no much good relationship that we have with the subs, not only alone with the subs. But remember, the relationship between the communities and the subs doesn't start between themselves. It's always a middle ground that we call community policing forums. And those are the institutions that normally work in between the police and the communities, are even discriminated from the foreign nationals.
All right, unfortunately, we've lost your sound there. Mr. de Klerk, let me try and throw one more question to you because I'm sorry, we can no longer hear Mr. Osman. If you can hear me, look, you spoke about the brazenness of this attack, sort of pointing to how protected the criminals feel, the gang people, and then a large group booked themselves into a hotel. There were 11 arrests. Is that a breakthrough? And the police minister says the 72-hour activation plan is proving very effective, kind of to go after the gang and its members and leaders very quickly, I guess.
Indeed, and we need to praise the police for their speedy action. However, what we need now is, as Mr. Osman has rightfully said, we have institutions within our communities like ward committees, community police forums. These mustn't become gatekeepers for the doing business or development opportunities, they should facilitate that without seeking a commission for doing so or some sort of advantage or benefit for doing so. Because that also is a form of extortion, and that's been going on for equally long time. This is where the police have to be present as caregivers, as the people who make sure that people stick to policy and who come in as the experts to provide a reassuring presence. So this building and knitting of socially and politically and economically inclusive societies is in fact what these vehicles are. And police play a big role in this. And they have to strengthen their relationship with all the disparate communities, including those who are most vulnerable, like our foreign nationals, including our local business owners, the elderly, those who use public transport, and those who are seeking to do business in those communities. Police have to get out of their vehicles, get out of their offices, and be present in the lives of local people.
All right, we have to leave it there just because of time, and you feel for the people who are so vulnerable in all of this. Children growing up with this gang violence around them. We'll follow that closely and see if this really is a breakthrough, those 11 that were arrested. Thank you very much. That was Senior Policing and Community Conflict Specialist from the Africa Centre for Security and Intelligence PRAXIS, Eldred de Klerk, and Abdirizaz Ali Osman from the Somali Community Board of South Africa.